Hi, I'm Erik Voss, and Coco was one of my favorite movies from this year, definitely up there among the pitch-perfect Pixar elite that make you feel those emotions that you never thought you had. And the reason this movie made you cry all those buckets is that the team at Pixar packed this movie with subtle details and meaning, all snuck into the animation with clever foreshadowing and strong visual storytelling. So I thought it'd be fun to re-watch this movie and explain all these details. We all need a good cry, right? And of course, spoiler warning if you haven't seen Coco, come on, just go watch it, preferably with a family member, or at least a wrinkled photo of one. Let's get started with 20 minutes of Frozen. I'm just kidding. Whatever your thoughts were on that short, Pixar pulled it from all future screenings of Coco, so we will not be talking about it here. Coco begins with the Disney fanfare, but you may have noticed the When You Wish Upon a Star theme has been covered by a mariachi band. Even before the movie starts, Coco is signaling that this will be a new kind of story, bringing us into a culture that has gone far too unrepresented in mainstream cinema. And the Coco team nailed this goal so well that the movie has gone on to be the most profitable film in Mexican history. Not too shabby. So the opening shot of the film shows us someone lighting a candle at an ofrenda, an offering made for the Mexican celebration Dia De Muertos, Day of the Dead. The story of Coco is deeply rooted in the traditions of this holiday. Dia De Muertos is the day the living remember and reconnect with the dead, when their souls walk among the living. It began in Mexico as an ancient Aztec celebration and later fused with the Christian All Hallows Eve, Halloween. It's celebrated with the images of skulls and skeletons, ofrendas to deceased loved ones with their photos and candles and tokens of things they loved, and the spreading of a golden flower called the Aztec marigold, forming a path for the dead to follow home. Now, apologies if I'm explaining to you traditions you already know or probably know better than I do. I'm just trying to establish how Coco uses these cultural elements in its story. For example, the way Miguel uses these papeles picados to explain the origin of the Rivera family. Now, these are perforated paper decorations that are strung up on many Mexican holidays. Here, they form a distinctly Mexican storybook opening for the film. Miguel introduces us to the Rivera family. It's possible that the name Rivera is actually a nod to Jonas Rivera, a longtime producer for Pixar who worked on Up and Inside Out. Now, the Rivera family assembles shoes, which is a detail that the film's directors, Lee Unkrich and Adrian Molina, picked up over several research trips to Mexico, including visits with extended families of artisans.
We visited big cities and little towns, multi-generational family businesses.
And the choice of shoes for the family product actually has some deeper meanings that I'll get to in a bit. But first, notice how Miguel gives Mama Coco a slice of an orange. Oranges have actually been known to improve memory, so this could be a little foreshadowing of Miguel trying to save his great-grandmother's memory in the film's final moments. And during the montage, when Miguel explains his family's ban on music, we get our first of many Pixar Easter eggs. A delivery truck for Pizza Planet passes the window. Pizza Planet was the restaurant in Toy Story, and one of these delivery trucks shows up in pretty much every Pixar movie. The creators confirmed there's actually a Mexican branch of Pizza Planet. And another quick Pixar Easter egg here, Abuelita's ofrenda contains another tiny Nemo. Later, as Miguel passes through the town, he drums a table covered in alebrijes. These are more details the filmmakers learned on their Mexico trips. Alebrijes are colorful, handmade papier-mâché wood carvings of fantastical animals. We'll see later how the animators brought these alebrijes to life as spirit animals for the dead. But here, if you look closely, there are a few more Pixar Easter eggs. On the table are alebrijes for Nemo, Marlin, and Dory from the Finding Nemo movies, as well as a small version of Pepita, Mama Imelda's creature, whom we'll meet later. Next, we meet Dante, Miguel's lovable Zolo dog. Zolos are referred to as a Mexican hairless breed. And yeah, they're really goofy looking, and the animators helped reflect this with Dante's tongue. It sticks out the side, and it's animated using the same technology as what was used for Hank in Finding Dory, and Lou, the hoodie from the Pixar short that was earlier this year. And yeah, the name Dante has some thematic significance as well. Dante could be from Dante Alighieri, the Italian Renaissance poet who wrote the Divine Comedy, and in the Inferno part, Dante plays the protagonist who journeys into hell. So it's actually an appropriate name for this underworld companion, but later we'll learn where Miguel actually got the name Dante. There are a few more Pixar Easter eggs during this opening montage. Miguel passes piñatas for Woody and Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story, and Mike Wazowski from Monsters, Inc. We also see a little boy wearing shoes patterned with number 95 Lightning McQueen from Cars, and a mask stand features a luchador mask with the design of the Luxo ball from Pixar's very first short. The production design of these opening scenes does such a good job establishing Miguel's base world with little details that will later come to life when he journeys into the dream world. Notice how there is sombreroed skeletons with guitars everywhere, a path of marigolds. If you think about it, Coco definitely follows in the footsteps of The Wizard of Oz, which is really just the classic story for daydreaming kids. The Wizard of Oz opened with little winks foreshadowing the dream world of Oz with base world equivalents. The farmhands become the Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Cowardly Lion. Mrs. Gulch becomes the Wicked Witch of the West. Professor Marvel becomes a wizard. And Coco follows a similar path with some really crazy parallels. A lonely child singing a song, dreaming of escape, a Toto, a yellow brick road, a Scarecrow-esque guide, a Wicked Witch pursuer with a flying minion, a shiny emerald city obsessed with a wizard who's later revealed to be a con man, and a return home with the child realizing he loves his family and the implication that his journey might have just been a dream. And Miguel introduces us to this con man, Ernesto de la Cruz. Now, I like this joke with him in a TV show as a flying priest, which could be a reference to the 60s TV show The Flying Nun. And in the scene depicting de la Cruz's death, as he finishes his rendition of Remember Me, he sings the lyric, "Know that I am with you the only way that I can be," and he very slyly winks. De la Cruz is probably just being flirty here, but yeah, this is totally foreshadowing the reveal of de la Cruz's trickery and falseness. Know that I am with you the only way that I can be, wink, meaning I can only be disingenuous when I am with you. Oh my God, lock this guy up. Next, we see how Miguel's abuelita beats the mariachi with her shoe. Now, in Mexican families, this is sometimes referred to as la chancla. Chancla meaning a slipper or sandal that Mexican mothers take off and smack their kids with or throw at them. And I love how abuelita wields it as a true weapon, a gun or a knife, flipping it around and returning it to her foot holster. And this is interesting because for Miguel, shoes represent both the family burden weighing him down, but also a fearsome sting of authority that his grandmother represents in his life. By the way, the director said that the most difficult element to animate was abuelita's neck. For a reference, Molina asked his mother-in-law from Mexico City to come into Pixar, where he and Unkrich tried to make her angry to see how her neck moved. And apparently this was really tough because the woman was just so sweet and hard to make angry, but eventually they successfully pissed her off. So what you are seeing here is authentic abuelita fury. Another design element that works really well in this movie is the parallelism between the skulls and guitars. Now, of course, Miguel copies de la Cruz by painting a skull on the headstock, but notice how on the flyer we see the shape of the guitar body is the same shape as an upside-down skull. This is just more genius visual storytelling by Pixar's animators. It conveys Miguel's pursuit of the guitar as one that will lead him into the land of the dead, and he will have to join his dead family members to give his passion in music real meaning. In fact, several moments in these opening scenes hint at Miguel's pseudo-death. He vows to enter the music competition, quote, "even if it kills me." He stands shakily on a loose tile roof, and he runs along the marigold path, the same one walked by dead souls. And Miguel's hideout as he watches classic musical films echoes the earlier Pixar film WALL-E, where WALL-E watches old musicals in his own hideout. Molina says this scene was actually based on his own childhood, watching old Disney TV recordings on VHS. There's more interesting foreshadowing here. De la Cruz says his mantra, "seize the moment," which Miguel interprets as "take control of your life, follow your heart." But as we learn later, De la Cruz has a more literal interpretation of this. He literally seized or stole his moment from Hector. He stole Hector's entire songbook and exploited Hector's talent to get famous. So in retrospect, abuelita's heartless crushing of Miguel's guitar, and thus his dreams to become the next De la Cruz, end up being redeemed. She's right to distrust De la Cruz, a glory hog who puts his own ego before all else. Next, Miguel runs to the cemetery to steal De la Cruz's guitar, and on the sign we see the name of the town, Santa Cecilia. In Roman Catholicism, Santa Cecilia, or Saint Cecilia, is the patron saint of musicians. Now, Miguel's stealing of the guitar, cursing him, banishing him to the land of the dead, is another aspect from Mexican folklore, and really folklore from many cultures, that warns stealing from the dead curses you. And I like how this scene visually explains this transition to the afterlife by showing Miguel falling into a literal open grave. By the way, notice how the woman helping him out of that grave wears a fancy Victorian-era hat. Now, this is a depiction of La Calavera Catrina, a famous icon of Dia De Muertos. The image of a female skeleton wearing a chapeau en attendé, a fancy European-style hat from the early 20th century. Now, the design of the Marigold Bridge and the Land of the Dead is just so visually stunning. You may have seen the filmmakers gush about the work that went into this in the video that rolled before the film. Now, they've also said in interviews that this look is based on real-world architecture in Mexico City and Guanajuato, which is known for colorful houses on hillsides that look like they're stacked on top of each other. They also worked in Aztec architecture into the design. Notice how each of the bridges lead to these Aztec pyramids. These pyramids pyramids are the first checkpoints on the journey into the land of the dead, perhaps representing how Aztec traditions and skull iconography were the original base of Dia De Muertos. Now we get a cameo in this scene by actor John Ratzenberger, who has voiced a character in pretty much every Pixar movie. Here he plays Juan Ortodontia, the word for orthodontist, a joke about this character's teeth still being covered in braces. Another interesting world design element, notice how all the technology in the land of the dead is old, obsolete, dead, if you will, technology. Turn dial phones, 80s Macintoshes, old walkie-talkies. And another quick Pixar Easter egg, this room number on the customs office is A113, which has shown up in nearly everything that's been animated in the past 20 years. A113 is the number of a classroom at Cal Arts where several Pixar animators studied. At the end of the movie, there's actually another numeric Easter egg when Hector gets approved to return to the land of the living. The screen reads 1138. Now, that could be a reference to THX 1138, George Lucas's first film. This number also shows up in a lot of movies as nods to Lucas. Now, notice this detail of Miguel's fading hand. Now, this is a design influence from Back to the Future, which is another film that COCO seems to be following in the footsteps of. Like Marty McFly, Miguel is an aspiring guitarist who journeys to an antiquated, bizarro world where he has to save his family by reuniting his patriarch and his matriarch. That task involves an old family photo, getting up on stage and playing a song that reminds the family members how much they love each other, and saving the life of his wacky companion who guided him through this journey. And like in Wizard of Oz, also features the kid waking up at the end, a subtle implication that this journey might have been a dream. Next, we meet Pepita, Mama Imelda's alebrije creature. It has a design similar to a chimera with the body and head of a big cat like a tiger or jaguar, eagle wings and talons on the back legs, and ram horns, and it looks like an iguana type tail. And this may be obvious, but I really like the storytelling choice to disguise Miguel with skull makeup. This, of course, is the same look people wear for Dia de Muertos in the real world, to celebrate the idea of souls walking among the living and to deceptively blur those lines. Here, Miguel is doing exactly that. He is a living soul walking among the dead, frightening them, using deception to trick them. Now, one of the odder scenes in the movie featured Miguel meeting Frida Kahlo, the famous Mexican artist. Honestly, COCO wouldn't be a complete celebration of Mexican culture without Frida. Her magical realism and general lifestyle has arguably done more than any other person to define Mexican culture and national identity in the 20th century. And like many artists, Frida was appreciated more after her death, so it makes sense that she would be so active in this afterlife. There's a few cultural references to Frida here, including nods to her still life paintings of fruit and cacti. She also has an alebrije of a monkey, referencing Frida's pet monkeys that she actually had. And she loves Dante, referencing how Frida actually repopularized Zolo dogs by including them in her art. Next, Hector and Miguel meet Chicharron, voiced by Edward James Olmos. His fate shows us what happens in this world when the dead souls are forgotten. This actually comes from a real-world concept that has been attributed to a quote by the street artist Banksy, though he's probably quoting someone else who I can't remember. They say you die twice, one time when you stop breathing, and a second time a bit later on when somebody says your name for the last time. This scene comes at the exact midpoint of the film, and it's packed with meaning for Hector. First, it shows him what will happen to him if he is forgotten, giving real stakes to this character arc. But also, him singing the lullaby to Chicharron hints that Hector is a truly talented musician, and it foreshadows his later lullaby for his daughter, Coco. And in perhaps the cleverest visual foreshadowing of this film, notice how Hector pours two drinks, drinking one and leaving another untouched for Chicharron. This close-up sets up the reveal of Hector's murder later. De la Cruz poured two drinks, with Hector drinking one, while the other was left untouched because De la Cruz knew it was poison. Pixar, you clever Zolo. We get a few more Pixar Easter eggs, with an Incredibles poster on the wall of an alley, and an emo musician in the contest wearing the same Black Skull t-shirt that Sid wore in Toy Story. I also like how, before the contest, Hector tells Miguel not to sing Remember Me, De La Cruz's biggest hit, that he's probably annoyed was bastardized from a personal lullaby between him and his daughter to this annoying, romanticized pop hit. Instead, he loves the idea of Miguel performing Poco Loco, which he probably wrote intending to be a fun crowd pleaser. And it totally works, with the boy and his secret great-great-grandfather harmonizing perfectly. All right, moving on to De La Cruz's party, which contains even more cameo references to Mexican pop culture. In line outside is Santo, a famous luchador wrestler. He was also known as Enmascarado de Plata, masked in silver for his silver mask. His date is Maria Felix, a super famous actress and singer from the golden age of Mexican cinema. Later, De La Cruz takes a photo with Mexican actor and comedian Pedro Infante and singer/actor Jorge Negrete. These two entertainers were actually the main influences on the development of De La Cruz's character. And later on, when they were singing with De La Cruz, we got a couple other cameos by Mexican wrestler and movie actor Cantinflas and Mexican revolutionary fighter Emiliano Zapata. In many ways, COCO Coco as a film forms a sort of ofrenda to these figures. In the movie's closing credits, Pixar included an additional ofrenda to the deceased loved ones who inspired them, including a picture of Walt Disney. Now, a few other fun animation details in this scene. The lampposts outside De La Cruz's mansion are shaped like musical treble clefs, and his 3 Alebrije chihuahuas are modeled on the 3 bear cub brothers in Brave. Shout out to Kelly for catching that one. And if you listen closely, you can actually hear where Miguel got the name for Dante, his Zolo dog. In one of the De La Cruz films playing in the background, he calls his horse Dante. Moving on to Miguel and Hector in the cave prison, and the reveal that Hector, not De La Cruz, is the Rivera family patriarch, through this gut-wrenching flashback to Hector serenading young Coco with the song Remember Me. Kind of like the phrase "seize your moment," the lyrics of Remember Me are another example of seemingly simple phrases introduced in the first act that later contain more profound meaning. This song was contributed to this film by Robert Lopez and Kristen Anderson Lopez. They were the ones who did the music for Frozen and the musical Avenue Q, and it sums up the theme of Coco as a whole, that love never dies so long as we keep loved ones in our memories. Okay, real tears here. So let's jump ahead to the Sunrise concert finale. We get a fun cameo by an animated version of Michael Giacchino, who composed the score to this film along with other Pixar movies Inside Out, Up, and Ratatouille. Fittingly, he plays the orchestra conductor. The song that Mama Imelda sings on the fly is called La Llorona. It's a classic Mexican folk song, and the song comes from the legend of La Llorona, the ghost of a woman who lost her children who now cries while looking for them in the river. It's really the truest song to come from Imelda's heart in this moment. She is also the ghost of a woman who fears she's losing her Rivera family after her photo was taken down from the ofrenda. And De La Cruz's demise comes with 2 really fun callbacks. Imelda stomps on his shoe and escapes with the photo, implying weak shoes were his undoing, which pays off Imelda's investment in shoemaking. And of course, the bell once again falls and crushes him, calling back his corporeal death. Now, this cyclical punishment is very similar to how Captain Hook goes down at the end of the movie Hook, with the same giant crocodile from his past collapsing on him. Now, this final sequence in the movie is one of the most endearing things I've ever seen in a film. The filmmakers avoided the general cliche of saving the world, instead opting for an even more emotionally urgent task of a young boy desperately trying to save his great-grandmother's memory. And a big reason this works is it's grounded in reality. Music has actually proven to be a highly effective memory triggering device for elderly patients with dementia. Maybe you've also sobbed at a few viral videos showing this phenomenon in action. So with this sweet, simple moment, Coco proves that both Miguel and his music-hating family were both right and both wrong in different ways. Miguel was right to follow his heart and to love music, but wrong to think that he had to separate that from his family. Meanwhile, his abuelita was right to teach her grandson about his family and their traditions, and to warn him against idolizing pop stars. But wrong that music is a toxic danger to this family. Music, it turns out, is the one thing that saves the family and connects the living souls with the past ones they have lost. Wow, that is a lot of feeling. Here's a question for you guys. How does Coco rank for you among the Pixar films? Now, for me, I don't really have a ranking. I just see Coco as kind of in an inner circle along with WALL-E and Inside Out, but I want to know your list. Comment down below with your thoughts or tweet me directly at Erik Voss. You can also follow New Rockstars on Twitter at New Rockstars for updates on our videos. Like and share this video and subscribe to us here at New Rockstars for these kinds of deep dives into all kinds of movie and TV you love. Star Wars, Avengers, we actually did another video about the dark truths of the Cars universe, but I wouldn't watch it if you're too young. And if you really want to help us grow as a channel, you can contribute to us on Patreon. Big thanks to all of our donors, especially Katrina Armstrong. Thanks for watching, bye.